which point there was no more Victoria, and I have no one but Mr. Vickers to thank.
Well, stories like that certainly make my day, as do the talents of our next guest. His name is Mark Lewis. His occupation, private detective. His specialty, car revenge.
Now, probably the simplest way to aggravate your Mark is to tamper with his tires. And the simplest thing to do here would be to unscrew the valve cap and let the air out. Now, the best thing to do would be all 4 tires. But if you don't have enough time, make sure you do the front tires. That way it's hard to steer and your Mark can't drive off that easily. Now, a lot of people recommend putting glass or nails under the tires. But believe me, for the best results, let the air out yourself. Now, one thing that every car needs is gas. And this car is no exception. Now, if the situation warrants it, and you need to damage the engine, the best way of doing that is adding some things to the fuel, like baking flour, sugar, regular granulated sugar, or glue, epoxy. Now, this will certainly damage the engine, cost a lot of money, cost your Mark a lot of time, and it will certainly drive your Mark crazy. My clients are always asking me for an easy, efficient way of providing their Marks with a massive headache. Well, I have just the thing. A locking gas cap. Now, you can buy this gas cap in any auto parts store, a couple of dollars. What you do here is remove the unlocking gas cap and replace it with the locking gas cap. And just screw it on here, turn it, take the key. That's the important thing here. You have to take the key. Then when your Mark goes to fill up, he can't get his gas cap off. Provides a massive headache. Come with me. Okay, here's one that dozens of clients have tried, and it really works. Take a can of black spray paint, spray the headlights. That way your Mark will not be able to drive at night till he has them replaced. Now, did I mention what you can do with a license plate? You can remove it and hide it. Or better yet, replace it with an out-of-state plate. Now, while we're down here, way in the back is the exhaust pipe. What you can do with that is take a potato or some other solid object, stuff it into the exhaust pipe, and the engine won't start. Do that at night, and your Mark will be late for work. Now, if you're fortunate to get under the hood, there are a lot of things we can do here. Okay, let's start over here. This is where you put the windshield washer fluid. But instead of putting the fluid, what you put in is cooking oil. What happens then, when the Mark starts his windshield washers, oil goes all over the windshield, which attracts a lot of dirt and a lot of dust. All right, the next thing here we'll deal with is cooling system. The idea is to put substances in there that expand with water. Baking flour, pancake batter, or even paper mache. Now, you can also put sand in here. Sand does not expand with water, but it will certainly do the job. Now, speaking of sand, this is where you put the engine oil. Put sand in there, and you will certainly damage the engine. Now, last little tip here, the distributor coil. Take one of these coils off, put chewing gum up into the coil, put it back on. Now, that will cause the car to bulk, to possibly even stall. The great thing here, though, is when the Mark takes the car to the gas station to his mechanic to try to get it fixed, it's almost impossible to find out what's wrong with it. Now, you do not have to be a mechanic to do all these things. You just have to be a little mad. Happy motoring.
Aren't you glad he's not your mechanic? Whew. Now, let's check back with investigator Quinn Vickers, who has a few more tantalizing ideas to tease your vengeful mind.
Here's a few miscellaneous ideas you might try out on your Marks. Sending a letter is a beautiful trick, and it works so simply. All you need is a plain piece of paper, and you cut out the letters from magazine or newspapers, right? You gotta say, "Dear so-and-so," the Mark's name, "I know what you're up to." Now, if he's like most people, he's got something he's doing that he shouldn't be doing, and he's gonna feel guilty, and he's gonna wonder who knows about it. And even if he hasn't done anything recently, you're going to drive them up the wall wondering why anybody would send something like this to them. Now, if your Mark is a member of the minority, you might turn him over to the Immigration Service. This is going to cause him hours and hours of endless paperwork trying to prove he's a citizen of this country. Listen to what one of my clients did.
I've been having some problems with my next-door neighbor. I loaned her some money, and you know, she just refused to pay me back. So I was getting a little irritated, and a friend of mine told me to call, Mr. Vickers. And I did, and he was very nice. And what he told me to do was call the Internal Revenue Service and tell them that she had a business on the side and was making money, and she hadn't been reporting her income. So what they did was, when I called up, I told them that I was a concerned citizen, and what I found out a little later on was they called her in for an audit, and they decided to go back 5 years and try to find out what happened to this money. And from what I gathered, she's been making weekly trips down there, and I would imagine it's been a little bit of an inconvenience for her, but whatever. And I would think that she's probably there right now.
Always keep in mind that a newspaper is a great source for getting even. One of my clients placed an ad in the Mark's name, advertising that he was going to have a big moving sale. Everything in the house going for 1/5 of its cost. And needless to say, he picked a time, a weekend, when he knew the Mark would be home relaxing, right? The guy was inundated by bargain seekers, ruined his weekend, ruined his life. Another cute trick is to place an ad saying that you are the sucker and you have $50,000 that you're open to any and all investment possibilities. And of course, you include the Mark's phone number. Well, needless to say, the phone will be ringing off the hook with all the cuckoo birds out there who have the great investment possibility. You want to make your Mark real paranoid? Listen to what another one of my clients did.
My former boss fired me for no damn reason whatsoever. So I put his name in the obituary column in the newspaper. And making sure that he received it, I mailed it to him with a note saying, "Someone out there is watching you." Then I put an ad in one of those gay magazines and put his name and number, and that worked in several levels. First, it affected his marriage. Then every time that phone rang, I can just see how paranoid he really was. He'd just jumping out of his seat. Then just think of the cost of him having to change the phone number and contact all his friends. This guy really deserved it. I enjoyed it.
A newspaper is a great source for revenge. Be inventive. Check it out. You're going to come up with dozens of ideas of your own.
Mr. Vickers is right. You don't have to be an expert to create some wonderful revenge techniques. We've been receiving dozens of letters from people just like you, detailing some delicious bits of revenge. A woman from Fort Worth, Texas writes in telling us how she got even with a former friend who owned a popular vending machine. She stuffed cotton way up into the change return slot. This had a twofold effect. One, it upset her former friend's customers because the machine wouldn't return their change. And two, when the woman returned a few days later and pulled out the cotton, she hit the jackpot. A man from Tempe, Arizona wrote in saying that his favorite prank is to phone his Mark from a payphone, preferably during the day. Then once his Mark answers the phone, the man simply leaves the payphone's receiver hanging off the hook, effectively tying up his Mark's phone line for hours until the phone company can reconnect his service. Keep those cards and letters coming in, folks. Question: name the location where the average person feels most secure, most comfortable. Answer: their home. Naturally. After all, a person's home is their castle, right? The only problem is that none of us have a moat to protect us.